IIT Madras has launched the new Center for Responsible AI, and we're being joined by Professor Ravindran, the head of the CRAI. So kindly tell us, what is the scope for AI in India and what is the way ahead?
So AI is actually going to affect India in a big way, right? So it's not just a question of one sector or single technology in AI, right? So it's going to be all pervading, right? Whether it is healthcare, whether it is finance, whether it is manufacturing, agriculture, AI is going to affect operations in a big way, right? And India is at a point where we both have an understanding of the technology, right? So there are a lot of people here in India with the requisite skills to engineer AI systems, right? And we also have processes for generating all the good quality data that we want, right? So putting all of this together, right? In the next few years, India should see a huge upsurge in adoption of AI in various sectors.
So when it comes to heads of big tech companies, most of them have expressed apprehensions about AI. Is there a need for a law or regulation of AI in India?
So yes, so AI is a transformative technology, right? So we need to figure out how AI systems are going to change the landscape, right? And there has to be some amount of regulation. Whether the regulation is going to come directly from the government, or whether the regulation is going to come as some kind of self-regulation through some kind of industry body, that has to evolve over time, right? But to say that AI can just replace existing technologies without any additional safeguards is not the right way to go, because as opposed to the traditional models of computing, right, AI has potential for making mistakes, potentials for errors, right? And so therefore we need to put in enough guardrails in place to ensure that these errors are not too catastrophic. At the same time, there is no one uniform AI regulation that is going to come out. So it has to be very, very sector specific. So AI use in healthcare, AI use in imaging in healthcare might need different kinds of regulations versus AI use in diagnostics or internal medicine in healthcare, right? So each of these sectors need a more nuanced understanding. So as with any new technology that comes in, you have to talk about regulation. So the reason some of the bigger companies, some of the top people in the world are a little apprehensive is because of the speed at which the AI technology is being adopted, right? They just think, oh, maybe we are just going ahead too fast before we understand the implications of it. It's not to say that AI is dangerous or it should be stopped. It is just that we need to take our time to do that. That's what they are talking about, right? But I feel that the research has to continue into the fundamental aspects of AI, into what needs to be done to regulate AI, right? At the same time, regulation should be there when you're talking about deploying AI in existing use case. When you're going to disrupt the existing delivery mechanisms in various domains, you need to think about what the disruption means. So the regulation is needed in that aspect.
So in certain countries, particularly in the EU, so AI-based facial recognition technology has received a lot of flack. So can you tell us more about it?
Well, AI-based facial recognition technology is fragile. It's not foolproof, right? And the cost for failure, depending on what you are using it for. If you are using it on Facebook to, tag faces, right, in images that you upload, and it gets a balloon as a human face, it's okay. But when you're trying to use this in terms of security, in terms of surveillance, in terms of law enforcement, right, or even in terms of authentication, user authentication and things like that, right? So then facial recognition technology can be brittle. And it depends a lot on what kind of data you are training it on. It could very well be very discriminatory. It could identify faces with certain kinds of features more easily, and maybe it won't be able to find faces with other kinds of features. So given that not only is it brittle, it can also be arbitrarily unfair in terms of performance metrics, right? So facial recognition technology can be used in conjunction with strict human oversight. So if you're going to use facial recognition technology autonomously to make decisions, it's not there yet.
So this also brings to the question the need for insurance in the AI sector. So if you deploy an AI tool and it fails, what's the cost? Who will bear that cost?
Yes, it requires a lot more research to do this, right? So there are existing industries where insurance models are there, right? I mean, so when you buy a car, you buy insurance, and then if you're building a hospital, you buy insurance, like that. So there are existing industry where these insurance models exist, right? But what we really need more research on is what happens to the risk that you're underwriting when AI tools are used. right? And this is not something which the insurance industry alone can do it. It has to be done in conjunction with the domain experts, the actuarial scientists, as well as the AI engineers and AI scientists. So this has to be like a multidisciplinary effort towards building this kind of models.
So when it comes to ChatGPT and Bard and such language models, what sort of impact can it have on education and related fields?
So you should remember that these are models that are trained on large volumes of prior data, right? And they are very good at predicting a sequence of text or sometimes text to image and things like that given a prompt, right? So this is going to have an impact. I'm not saying no, right? In many areas it's going to have an impact. It's going to be a significant productivity improvement tool, right? How is it going to affect education? We need to look at it. I mean, we have to see how it's going to play out, right? For example, for very standard programming questions, right? So it's a lost battle. I mean, these things can very easily, generate code for you. Right? Now the question is, how easy is it for students to use it in exams? How is it for them to use it in assignments? Can we, come up with protocols for, limiting their usage? Right. So all of these are questions that we have to ask and see how things evolve. Right. So we have to be careful about this. And I was actually giving a talk to a public forum once, and somebody asked me, "Do you see skill loss happening in students because of this adoption of ChatGPT?" So I said that, well, who can do large sums in your head anymore? Right? Everybody looks at a calculator. So once the calculator was there was some skill loss that happened. So mental arithmetic skills went for a toss. Like that, there could be some set of skills that we don't get that well trained in because of ChatGPT and other things. But to give that prediction today, when the technology is so nascent, is very hard to do. So, but there will be disruption. There's no question.
So particularly when it comes to jobs and in places like India, what kind of disruption do you foresee? There are reports that say that jobs will be phased out because of the evolution of AI.
See, for example, people talk about how journalism will get affected with all this AI things coming in. But right now, they are not at a level where they can do this at vernacular press. Right? So if you're writing English, then you have a challenge. Okay. Having said that, so that's basically to set the India context, right? So these tools have been trained largely on Western data. It might be some time before we get tools with the similar capabilities on Indian data. So that's one part of it. But even on the Western data, right? So these tools are not at a point where they can completely replace the human being. So what is going to happen is that a journalist is now going to have to learn a different set of skills. They need to know how best to get the right output from ChatGPT so that they can cut down on their writing time, as writing and rewriting and editing time, right? So now they can go to ChatGPT and see how they can cut it down. If you're letting ChatGPT generate things on its own, you don't know what kind of text is going to come out, right? So the hallucination problem, as they are calling it, is still a big challenge in many of these large language models, whether it is Bard or other things. People are trying to get around that by writing rules and putting in place some guardrails for all of these hallucination issues, and also in terms of toxic language generation to try to see and limit that. But this is still a work in progress, right? And for the immediate near future, I don't see job loss. I see job retraining that is required, right? The same reporters who used to use a different set of tools, or the same programmers who used to use a different set of tools to write their code, now will have to learn how to use these tools. And it doesn't make sense to say that they should be banned, because there's significant productivity enhancement. So if a program that might have taken me 2 weeks to develop can be done in 2 hours now. So why would I not use it?
So finally, about Siri itself, what will be Siri's role as far as IIT Madras is concerned, and what about Siri's role on a pan-India level?
So Siri is from the beginning envisaged as a multi-institutional, multi-stakeholder center, right? So we would like to partner with people around the country and even across the globe. Right, so we are partnering with NGOs that are based out of Delhi. We are partnering with NGOs that are based out of Bangalore, and we are looking at multiple such partnerships. Right. So as far as the center is concerned, we would like to make this more of truly a pan-India research center, and we also have relationships across the globe. We are talking to universities in Australia, we're talking to universities in Canada and the US and the EU. In order to have more collaborations globally as well. So as far as the center is concerned, we don't want it to be just limited to working with IIT Madras researchers alone.